What is up, everybody? I am George Mossey. Please say hello to my co-host Dee. Hi. So we're talking Darcey and Stacey this week, and we're on season 4, episode 9. And there's a lot. This was a very dramatic episode, so I don't want to waste any time because we don't have a whole lot of time. So first of all, we want to say congrats to Aniko, who has packed up her life and moved to Arizona, and she's going to college, going out on her own. And I think that we have something in common. She said that it was the day that she was supposed to leave for her flight and she hadn't packed. I usually am not done packing until my flight is about 3 to 4 hours from takeoff. So I feel like we have that in common because I was like, oh, I feel you. I do that. I'm literally supposed to be getting in my Uber and I'm still putting things in my suitcase. So I totally understand that. And I love the dorm room, right? Like I felt like it was small and it was generic, but it was clean and it had an air conditioner that you could control. So I feel like Aniko has a nice little place for her, and her roommate seemed really nice. And unfortunately, Darcey's life hack kind of left the room smelling like raw sewage. Because, okay, so what are your thoughts on putting eggs in the microwave? I was always told that you don't put eggs in the microwave under any circumstances. Am I right, or is Darcey right?
I've always been told the same. Never do that. So I've never I've never heard of that. I was speechless.
Yeah, I was surprised, and I was like, eggs in the microwave. I was just always told not to do it. And then we learned something about Darcey on this episode. So apparently she was at a Vanilla Ice concert, and she was going to go up on stage with him and stage dive. And then everyone who was yelling jump decided not to catch her, and she landed face first and face planted on the ground. So that was interesting. And even Aniko and Aspen were like, oh, well, that's embarrassing. And I love that Annika was like, Mom, stop worrying about me. She's like, I'm gonna take care of my grades myself. I'm more motivated in school. And it was interesting because Darcey was so worried. Like, it's interesting to see this side of her, the motherly side of her, because we always see her in her relationships and her business. And sometimes she's making decisions that we don't agree with. But being a mom, Darcey really has it down. She is such a great mom. And I felt like she was so worried, and it's gonna be difficult because her two daughters are the most constant things in her life other than her sister Stacey and her dad. So she's gonna be like really trying to adapt to a lifestyle of knowing that her little girl is a grown adult woman living her own life on the other side of the country. So I feel like those emotions were so real on this episode.
Yes, and I can totally feel exactly where Darcy's coming from. I mean, I'm a mom, and my daughter lives an hour from me, and I'm always like, texting, calling, just to see if she's okay. And, so I can, definitely relate. I wouldn't know how to react if my daughter flew pretty much, across the world to college. I mean, but Aniko, she has got a good head on her shoulders, and she's a wonderful mom, and I loved seeing that side of, Darcey in this episode. That really, that's a side that we never get to see.
Yeah,
So
it's
that was real
nice.
special.
It was special. It's nice to see that side of her because we always see, her in her personal life. And she did try to leave her daughters out of the show in the beginning, and then she kind of brought them in later on. And it's just
Mhm.
nice to see that side of her. So I want to talk about Stacey because she was unable to find a dress in a store that she liked. And we know she's been planning this wedding this whole season, and Florian has been trying to stop her from planning the wedding this whole season because everything is like too expensive, waste of money, out of control. So Stacey found this woman, Katarina Bucci, who is a huge big name dress designer, and she
Mhm.
specializes in personalized dresses. She makes dresses that are made for specific women, what they want, and they even talk about the designs that they want. And she decided on like a mermaid fitted dress. So this dress is going to
Mhm.
be amazing, and she was going to show Stacey kind of the design that was going to go on the dress, not the actual dress, and with permission from Stacey so Florian could see it, because Florian was like, even in my culture, in my country, you're not supposed to see it. But it wasn't the full dress, so they did show Stacey the vision that they had been talking about and creating, and it looked amazing. And the fact that she said that each piece was hand sewn Can you imagine how many hours that took? Because there had to be like 5 or 6,000 stud diamonds on that. And she was just like, oh yeah, all of this was hand done, hours and hours of work. And I was like, how amazing is that? They didn't say how much it was going to cost. I guarantee you we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first off, us women, that's whenever we're small, that's what we dream of, the perfect wedding, the perfect dress, the perfect look. And I was like, come on, Florian, you're trying to talk her out of it. Come on now. This is Stacey. We're talking about Stacey here. Come on. She's got to be, top notch. It's got to be like a showstopper when she walks in the room. And just seeing her get emotional off of just a little sample piece, I can imagine how emotional she's going to be whenever the whole dress is done. Like, I mean, just by that little sample piece, I was like, oh my gosh, it is going to be a gorgeous dress. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the finished, the finished dress and exactly, how it's going to be. But with it being Stacey, she's going to be gorgeous anyway. So
it's gonna be a sight to see. So after seeing the dress, she got a missed call from Conrad. Conrad is their designer back at House of 11 in LA. And apparently the samples that Conrad sent them, the promo samples for the Impossible Kicks collab, were needing to be sent back to LA so they could go to production because they're going to be launching this very soon. And they need a large amount of clothing to put in the stores for this launch. So the problem was they were waiting to do a promo shoot for the actual sample, so they had something to post on social media, something to put on houseof11.com. And Darcey was obviously in Arizona and couldn't do that. So Stacey made an executive decision. She's been making a lot of those this season. And she decided that she and Florian were going to have a last minute photo shoot and get some promo material because she felt something is always better than nothing, which I actually agree with. But Darcey didn't feel the same way. Darcey felt like as a 50-50 shareholder in this company, she should have been notified. Even if she wasn't going to be in the photos, she wanted to be able to have a say in it. And she also said that she would have used more than one model. She would have had guys and girls, and she would have done different backgrounds, and she would have wanted a glam team. And a lot of the stuff that she wanted, I don't know if they had enough time for, because I know that this was very last minute. They had to like FedEx overnight these samples back to LA. So I know Darcey wanted to have her say in it, but how much of that do you think was feasible? Do you think that if Stacey would have called her, they would have had time to pull off the photo shoot that Darcey wanted? Or do you feel like this was the best that they could have done with the amount of time they had?
In this situation, I would have to be, on Stacey's side because, she was trying to give Darcey the time and the respect, for her to get everything organized with Anico out in Arizona with the college. And with her being pressured to overnight the material, it's like they had one day to the next to get everything done. And I think it was blown out of proportion just a little bit on Darcey's side. I see where Florian and Stacey was going with it. Like Stacey said, the business has to go on. It can't stop for anyone. It has to keep going.
I feel like they had good intentions. Like, I don't feel like that Stacey and Florian did this in any devious way, because I feel like Darcey looked at it as, well, you waited till I was out of town and you started making decisions without me, and you're doing things that I wouldn't approve of. And I don't feel like Stacey and Florian had any negative intention when they did it. I felt like they felt this was a good business decision because once the samples were gone, they probably weren't going to get anything back until a day or two before the launch. They weren't going to have a lot of time to get promotional photos done because they could have posters made, put in the store to show people. They could have banners outside. They could have social media posts leading up to the event, but without the samples, they wouldn't be able to do that. So like you said, I think that they did it in the best interest of the business. But since Darcey was left out of it, she kind of felt like, well, you don't get to decide what's the best interest of the business without me. But when it comes to business, it's kind of like show business, you know, like Stacey said, it has to go on. You have to make decisions. And if someone isn't there to make a decision, Stacey being a 50-50 shareholder, she is allowed to make decisions on her own, being that much of a shareholder. And that blow up at the end that we watched, you know, I guess that's part of the consequences of being a business owner, especially when you're sharing it with someone else, because it's hard to please two people, right? Like, you know, you're doing something that in your mind is right, but in the other person's mind, they're like, well, I would have had better photo shoot. I would have had a better background. I would have had, and it's like, I would have, but you weren't there to do it. And it's like, I want to be on Darcey's side, but I feel like Stacey did the best that she could with the time she had. And and Stacey was like, just say thank you, you know, say thank you to me for what I did, because I didn't have to do anything. We wouldn't have anything at all. And Darcey's like, well, it kind of looks like we don't have anything at all. You know, like, I don't like what came out of this. And I hate seeing that, because I remember there was a time when Darcey and Stacey were so close, watching the seasons and watching them back on 90 Day. And Darcey said something on this episode that caught my attention. She said when she got back to Miami, the first thing she did was call Leslie. And I was like, I remember a time when she would get back to Miami and the first thing she would do is call her sister. And I was like, it's really growing evident that they're growing apart. And this season has really showcased how different they're becoming. And it's almost scary, because we've watched them literally dress alike, do the same things. They were going to have a wedding and get married at the same time. And now they don't even speak. Like, there's times where one will be out of town, come back in town, not even call the other one and say, I'm home, I'm here, I made it safely. And it's like their relationship is really changing. And I think it has to do with the fact that Stacey is getting married and Darcey isn't. And it's funny that this is driving them apart, because Darcey marrying Georgie wasn't a good idea. And I feel like she made a great decision postponing and stopping and ending that relationship. And speaking of that, there's a new guy that she's kind of excited to start talking to named Zach. I want to get your thoughts on Zach, because he's more her style, right?
So far. So far. I was like, just by looking at the picture and talking to him on the phone, it was like she fell in love. And that's Darcey. That's who Darcey is. That's who Darcey has always been. And I don't really know what to say on this one, because just like every time, I think Darcey she's fast forwarding it too fast, and she needs to like pump the brakes just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But Darcey deserves happiness. Darcey deserves, you know, the best in life. But for her to, you know, make the comments that she made just by looking at a picture and talking to him on the phone, you know, talking about vibration all over her body and stuff. I mean, that's Darcey, you know, but that's going a little bit too fast. She needs to pump the brakes just a little bit.
Yeah, she's all in all the time. And I think that she is excited about the idea of finding someone. And I think, like you said, she falls in love with their looks and an idea. And I think she should focus more on getting to know that person and seeing if they're compatible, because attractive doesn't make them compatible. And I think Darcey, she kind of bases her compatibility on attraction. And I think that's kind of how we've ended up in this place with her and her dating history now, because attraction is like her number one thing that she's looking for. And unfortunately, attractive people can be horrible people. So it's like we have to focus a little more on the deeper inside of that person and not just how good looking they are on their Instagram. And I think that's something that we're going to learn along the way with Darcey. All right, we've run out of time. First of all, thank you so much to my co-host Dee Dee Castile for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm George Mossey. Make sure you're following me on all social media platforms at George Mossey, georgemossey.com, and anywhere you get your podcast. This has been the George Mossey Show. We will talk to you guys really soon.